Hi, I'm Debs.
And I'm Ruth.
Welcome to Art Alchemy. And today we're going to talk about all those people that come to us and say,
I can't draw. One of the first things that seems to pop out of people's mouths, whether it's they're doing a workshop with you, a course, or even if you just open up the conversation about art and being an artist.
yeah.
It's almost like I can't draw.
Yeah. And it's actually above the I've got no talent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's just like an
It rolls
automatic.
off the tongue, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's really weird. Yeah.
It is. Is it something that you've ever said?
Probably.
Yeah.
If I'm truthful, but I don't remember saying it. And I think it's that automatic that's probably why I don't remember saying it.
Yeah, it's true.
But I don't think somebody would say, I can't write.
No.
And when I think about it, it just feels the same to me.
It is, because the physical action of it, you're just putting something down on paper, aren't you? Just putting pen to paper or pencil to paper. You're just making marks on a page.
I'm not the best drawer.
No, is it still something that you're not confident in then? That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because there's other people who are hyper realistic and can draw incredibly well in that way, and that's not very me.
Yeah,
that is interesting. Actually,
I think that the underlying reason in terms of what holds people back, I think people do expect from drawing just to be able to draw, and like the talent thing, it's something that you've either got or you've not. Like, there is this myth around it, isn't there? In reality, it takes a lot of time, doesn't it, in practice to become good at drawing and honing your observational skills.
and to be honest, I don't think my observational skills are bad, but I still think I could do with more practice on the drawing, and that's not coming from that's just realistic. I've been painting, drawing, doing for years, and I'm aware of that. What amazes me is that when people first come to you and they think they should just be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I start to explain to people about the fact that people who can draw do measure, they practice, they do all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I think often people don't realise that.
They just think that you should just be able to do it or not do it. And there's a lot of time and patience and practice. And there's certain tips that you can use to make yourself better at drawing as well, which we'll come on to later on in the episode. But if you're somebody who wants to draw and this is something that's holding you back, we've got some tips around getting started as well, haven't we? And getting out of your own way, because quite often I think the thing that holds people back is that getting started, isn't it?
It is.
Initial kind of getting going, because there's so many things that crop up in your head, kind of blockers that can get in the way of doing it.
Definitely. And there's lots of exercises which they make it feel less threatening. It's really strange. We will go into that.
Yeah.
Do you believe anyone can draw?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone can draw. Yeah. And it's something that you can get better at as well.
I'd like to just go into why we think anyone can draw, because I agree with you.
Yeah.
So if you get a bit of paper, if you're at home there, and a pen, and then just draw a circle, draw a straight line just underneath it, straight down. I'm going to do it here. Look. Right. Here we go. So for those of you who are listening on Spotify or whatever and they can't see us, I apologise for this, but I am drawing a circle.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a line across.
Yeah.
And a little triangle at the bottom.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a stick man.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
it's drawing.
Isn't it funny? I was just thinking there as well, Debs, that when you're a child drawing, they don't have any hesitation, do they?
No,
And that
not at
they're
all.
quite happy to just doodle and do things, put things down on paper or paint and get creative. And I think quite often it happens later on. Sadly, at school and things like that, people are often told that they can't draw by teachers and they're seen as like the authoritative figure. Or maybe it's a parent or somebody that just puts a little bit of a seed of doubt in them that it's not something for them. I think that's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is difficult because you might go, oh, that's lovely drawing. What is it?
Yeah.
It's really easy to do without meaning to actually
Be critical or be harsh at all, yeah.
It is quite tricky. And the other thing is, there is that compare thing. You try to draw and then you look at what somebody else is doing and you're like, why can't I draw like they do?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's to do with the fact that you haven't practiced and you don't know the techniques, etc. And sometimes it's because if you actually explored who you are as an authentic artist, person, you may not be a really detailed drawer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with this.
Yeah, I do. That might not be your style of drawing or even like the subject matter that you're actually interested in. So I think that's another thing as well, is find something that you want to explore and you're interested in. For example, my artworks are definitely more, well, it's all nature inspired, which is quite organic, free flowing. It's not super tight or, you know, geometric or anything like that. Whereas some other artists are more interested in doing things like architecture and skylines, which is a lot more kind of rigid.
The other thing is we're taught to colour within the lines.
Yeah.
And when you become an artist, you have to fight that.
You do, yeah.
And be able to break those lines and in order to make it look organic and like we want to draw.
Yeah.
You have to break that down.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens is your brain, when it's very, very young, can't process everything. So what it does is it has to symbolise everything. So I've just drawn a stick man. When children draw, say for example, when they paint, they'll do a line for the sky.
Yeah.
And I remember my granddaughter saying, that's not how you do sky.
Yeah.
This is how you do sky.
Yeah.
And that's because there's so much information for a brain to learn when it first is very, very young that it symbolises. And so a tree becomes, like a stick with a curly.
Yeah.
Can you see? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your child tree. And a house is very even, etc., etc. And this is something that as you get older, you have to break down as well.
Yes.
It's really weird.
And I think a big part of that is learning to actually properly observe what's in front of you rather than assuming what something should look like. So, for instance, when you look at the colour of something as well, like if you look at the different colours that are, say, on a tree bark, you'll get everything from like silvery greys to rich browns to green. And if you're not actually looking and paying attention to that, you can easily be tricked into thinking, okay, I'm drawing a tree bark, it should look like this. And you stop looking at what's in front of you and make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, so water is blue. As opposed to water is a reflection of the colours that are around it, which is something that, you learn, don't you?
Yeah. I think it always comes back to that observational thing. So there's also things that you can do. Say if you're drawing a bowl of fruit, you can look at, in terms of scale, where the apple meets the banana and how to make things proportional by actually looking at where things are on the page and what's in front of you as well. So there's a lot of kind of tricks that you can use as an artist to make things more realistic.
A lot of it isn't tricks, it's measuring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're looking at how the eye is seeing a 3D world and representing that on a as a 2D image.
Yeah, that's right. The next bit that we're going to talk about is exercises and ways people can get started.
Yeah, okay. Which we've actually already started to talk about a little bit, but we're more thinking in these exercises and how to get started. It's things which are almost non-threatening. It sounds a bit weird to say non-threatening.
To build up your confidence and to get you going.
Most importantly is to build up your observational skills. Ruth's got an I Can't Draw mini course, and in that course she says 80% observation, 20% is the actual drawing.
Yeah.
And I've always said that as well.
Yeah, so important. Yeah. And one of the ways that you can do that to kind of get out of your own way, because if you are getting hung up at looking at what's on the page, which is easy to do and that's a natural human thing, is to do blind drawing, where you don't look at your page at all and you keep your eye on what's in front of you and you actually look at the object that you're drawing and not your page at all. That can be quite, in itself, the results that you achieve with that, you've got to accept that it's not going to be the perfect drawing, but it's more about getting your hand moving on the page and getting used to looking at the object of what's in front of you. But it can also create some quite fun sort of abstracty drawings as well.
Not only that, occasionally you capture something. So I've done like blind drawing of people and you sort of can capture something sometimes and you surprise yourself.
Yeah. So that's a good one to start with. I was going to go into continuous line drawing next, which is quite similar and something that you can use alongside the blind drawing. So the idea of a continuous line drawing is that you keep your pen on the page and you don't lift it up at all, but you follow what you've got in front of you. And I suppose it's more about intuitive drawing, isn't it, where you let your hand wander a bit across the page whilst you're drawing.
Yeah, but you don't lift your hand at all.
No, you don't lift your hand. Yeah. And that is a good way to just really get into the movement of drawing and expressing something.
And I think that when you're doing blind drawing, if you're doing it in a continuous drawing type way, sometimes it helps you not to lose where you are.
Yeah.
And all of these things aren't intended to take very long.
Yeah.
And because you don't take very long, that's also non-threatening.
Yeah.
Which brings us on to another one.
The quick drawing, because quite often people can think, I've not got the time to actually sit down and draw, whereas these are just designed to get you going. So with the quick drawing, you set a time limit, say 1 minute, and then you just draw whatever's in front of you as quick as you can. And that's a good way to get loosened up. And you can do it in like 10 seconds as well. Yeah. And that's fun.
There are other things you can do, like try and get somebody to give you an object behind your back and then try and just draw it by feel.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. And another one is, and this is quite interesting, listen to the sounds that are around and try and do that as a drawing. This is more an interpretive thing. But all of these things are getting you into drawing without an expectation of you creating some incredible realism.
Yeah, a masterpiece. Yeah. It's just getting going, isn't it? You can do that as well if you want to draw from music. There's artists that are well known that have used music as inspiration, such as Kandinsky. He was very kind of abstracty and used kind of different expressive shapes. But I also think with the music thing and the sound thing, you are tuning into your senses as well, not just your visual, but also just getting yourself into a space where you're in a place where you're probably a bit more relaxed as well. Do you think that helps?
Absolutely. So you're tapping into the intuitive side.
Yeah.
It is the getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
I definitely, in my art, want to pass over the experience of a particular, not necessarily a moment in time, but something that is happening. Part of that is not just visual.
Yeah.
So that's where the sound side, it's a sensory thing.
Yeah.
And that's the same as if you put an object behind your back, how does it feel? You've got the senses of the sound. I've not tried taste, not tried that.
No, but that's something that you could do, definitely.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, my workshop that I do every month is Art in the Park, and it says what it does, really. I get people out in nature drawing, but I think there is something in being out in nature in a natural environment that's relaxing, that then enables people to let go a little bit and, you know, look at everything around them and be able to draw and be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely something around the environment as well.
Yeah, and the other thing that I do outside, so in the way that you were talking about art in the park, is I'll take a sketchbook out and I'll go and just sometimes just draw something that I see. And it could be a pot, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be anything major. Sometimes I just draw to draw, and that's great. But it does bring us on to another subject, which is sketchbooks. So the difference between sketching for your own development or your own pleasure, a lot of the time, just to do it, with nobody expected to see it, boring, with sketching.
Yeah,
The difference, it's really weird, the difference.
There is definitely a mental difference, isn't there? Instead of thinking I've got a perfect finished drawing that's going to be shown to people versus I'm using a sketchbook, like you say, for my own personal development, and it could be on whatever it is that you want to draw, and you don't have that pressure of having to show people because your sketchbook can remain completely personal to you.
Or you could also use a sketchbook for planning. So I could be outside and planning a painting, and you do little thumbnails, and nobody expects a thumbnail to be perfect. You do them in 5 or 10 minutes. But it does help with everything. It helps with composition. It helps with observation. Sketchbooks are fabulous.
Yeah.
You can just do what you like in them.
And it's just getting your ideas down as well, isn't it? I think the other thing as well is about materials. Sometimes people can get a bit stuck, but you can draw with, like, even just a biro at home. You can just sit and doodle. It doesn't have to be anything fancy to get started. And if you want to be a bit looser, like when I used to do life drawing classes, sometimes we'd use charcoal instead of a pencil. So you'd be using the charcoal as a drawing material, which is kind of thicker and looser, but that's got other material properties where you can focus more on the light and shade and gradient of things. So there's different kind of materials that you get.
I use pens sometimes.
Yeah.
So I will go out and I will do, in sketchbooks, I will use pens that run.
Yeah.
Non-waterproof pens. I've used waterproof pens as well.
Yeah.
I prefer pens to pencil sometimes in my sketchbook because I don't correct then.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I was going to come on to. Quite often in my workshops, I get people just to use felt tips so they can't rub them out.
Yeah.
And it feels more approachable in some ways, just using a felt tip as well, because it's just
an everyday object.
Yeah. So because quite often what can happen when you try to draw is that you spend that much time being self-critical and rubbing stuff out that you don't end up with much on the page. And it's essential for you to make mistakes as well, for you to learn from them. So you have got to put down a certain amount of marks on the page before you start rubbing things out and correcting things, because you're just never going to get anywhere if you do that.
No. And I've also, I don't know where I've picked this up from, but if you draw an incorrect line, angle line, and then you rub it out, then it's quite a natural thing to do to put the incorrect line in again.
Yeah.
And when you do that, muscle memory is doing it wrong, because a lot of what you do when you're practicing your sketchbook, doing your drawing, it's to do with building up hand-eye coordination and muscle memory. So what you're doing when you use a pencil rather than a pen and then rubbing it out is you're ingraining the incorrectness of it in your brain. And so if you actually use a pen and then you correct it, your brain learns from that.
Should we go on to some tips?
Yeah, we'll talk about tips now. Okay, so one tip is, and it's really probably quite obvious.
Yeah.
You do need to practice.
Dedicate time to it, practice. The big thing for me around this one, sometimes people can stop themselves before getting started because they think they've not got enough time. But if you can set aside even 30 minutes a day just to practice, and you could be drawing anything from home, or you could be sitting in your garden, it's amazing the amount of time that you can fit in if you carve out a little bit of time to do that practicing.
I think even 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Once you've started, you can go on a bit longer.
Yeah.
5 minutes is a good amount of time to just set yourself a little bit of...
It is. And if you wanted to pick the same thing to draw, 5 minutes, and do that on a separate page, or you could choose something to draw, put 5 minutes into it every day and slowly build up that drawing. So there's also different ways of doing it as well.
The one thing that strikes me with the practice thing is that even I have that little bit of, I can feel a little bit of the resistance to the practice thing. Do you think it sounds, for some people, does practice sound boring? A bit like homework?
Yeah.
But it isn't.
No.
So drawing isn't like that, because often it's really enjoyable, but it helps you to get into that relaxed space. So it's worth giving it a go.
Yeah.
Tell us how you feel about it.
Yeah, and the thing is as well is that you can choose to draw whatever you want to draw. So if you're interested in people, you can go out and sketch people. If you're interested in flowers, make it like a nice, enjoyable activity for yourself. Don't make it too harsh on yourself where you're like, I've got to draw this thing and it's got to be absolutely perfect. Whatever it is that you're interested in, whatever sparks your interest, you can draw. Don't overthink it. And it could just be something you've got lying about at home. You're like, oh, I'm going to draw that.
Yeah, and I think I've done that before, just like an everyday object.
Yeah.
Whatever's in the house.
Yeah.
But sometimes it might be that picking an everyday object isn't what you want to draw. So do think a little bit about what it is that you'd like to start practicing.
And I think once you start practicing and get going, that'll open up other avenues as well, where you think, okay, I enjoyed that aspect of drawing it, but I'm going to try this thing next. It's all about getting going, isn't it, really?
It is.
That's what we're saying.
It's actually really easy to fill a sketchbook if you sort of give it a... For example, what I'm trying to say is, I've had little sketchbooks and I thought, right, I'm going to fill this sketchbook with quick drawings of people that I happen to see, and it can be filled really quickly if you give it a focus, as opposed to having to think about every single page.
Yeah. Another thing that I quite often do with sketchbooks is rather than starting on the front page, I'll flip into the middle, because there is something about starting a new sketchbook where it's like your perfectionist might kick in and you're like, oh, this is the first page that I'm going to see, it needs to be beautiful. And actually it takes you a while to warm up, doesn't it? So if you pick a random page in your sketchbook, that has always helped me in the past as well, particularly if it's not particularly got a logical flow and you're just using it just to practice your sketching in, it can be completely random. And then the other thing sometimes that gets in people's way is the fear of the blank page. So having like a crisp white page to start on, you can easily just paint your own background or do something on the page where you've got something down that you don't have to think about.
We talked about this before in sketchbooks, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I've done it where I've had like a concertina or something and just put blobs of ink or a bit of collage.
Yeah.
It does give you something to start working against.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can create interesting effects as well, can't it? Where you've got kind of more layers.
It really takes away the blank page thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
And also you can layer drawings on top of each other. You can turn around the page. You can do all sorts of things, can't you, to create interesting drawings. It doesn't necessarily have to look like something, so you could use it for creative development as well of ideas.
Like you said, put some blobs of colour or whatever. Look at what's around you and see how that fits with what's there as a realistic drawing.
Yeah.
And that can be really interesting as well.
Yeah, to get that kind of contrast.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what other tips. Do you know, I've done drawing courses where they get you to do circles over and over again.
Yeah.
It's all to do with coordination, that is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether that is like a little bit, but you know, and then close your eyes and do circles and all these things that people are thinking of, I can't draw, but all of it's drawing.
Yeah.
Any of these tips that we've given you, any of these exercises, all of it adds up. You have like layers of, as you actually keep doing these drawings, what you'll find is you get better at realistic drawing as well. So even though you might be doing something that you think is quite random, it's all about training that hand-eye tight coordination and your observation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And suddenly you'll go, oh my goodness, I can draw better than I could.
Yeah, I think you can surprise yourself, can't you, how quickly you can build up the skills as well.
Yeah. What you need to do is make your practice interesting.
Yeah.
You need to call it something else other than practice.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing as well that I found in a workshop the other day that I was doing in Aberdour, which is in Fife in Scotland on the coast, I had a group of 4 ladies that were together and we were doing the workshop, and the first part of it was always around observation. And the thing that they were saying is that because we were sat outside, it was a beautiful day, and we were on sort of park benches in the garden, they were saying a big part of letting themselves go and relax was that social aspect of drawing. And it might not be for everybody, but what they were saying is because they were just able to let go and take the pressure off a little bit, probably because they weren't sat at home in silence and got nothing else around them to distract them. That might be quite challenging for some people. But if you're in more of a social situation, maybe you've got a friend that likes drawing as well, and you just spend an hour in their garden catching up with a cup of tea whilst you're both sketching, that can be a really nice thing to do together.
You've assigned time to it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when we go on the painting holidays, have said that the thing that is most important to them is the fact that they've allowed themselves that time to do it.
Yeah.
To be painting, sketching. Yeah.
And they've got that dedicated time that they've committed to do the thing that they want to do. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It can be quite hard to go out on your own and sketch because people can come up to you.
People will stop and look at what you're doing, which I don't mind now, but when you're a beginner, it can feel quite intimidating. It's nice because people are just curious about what you're doing. But I did find that when you're in a group and people do stop and chat to you, people are more likely to be, the people that are doing the drawing are more likely to feel comfortable because there's other people around them doing the same thing.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. It's almost like that numbers thing.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah. I don't mind people looking because you know it's a process, and you know that sometimes your drawing isn't in a state where it looks fabulous.
Yeah.
But that is quite difficult for people who are first going out, and going out in a group's definitely an advantage.
Yeah. So let's move on to takeaways then. Debs, what are you thinking in terms of our conversation today?
Well, I'm going to say I can draw.
Yay! You can. Anyone can.
Which is quite interesting because sometimes it probably is a little bit of a hang-up for me.
Yeah.
The drawing side, which is strange really.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm an artist. But I do go out and I do sketch.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is drawing. Which is drawing. I hope that it's not necessarily us that's had lots of takeaways this time. I'm hoping that some of you out there have had takeaways.
Yeah.
That maybe you'll pick up on one of the exercises. We'll link to a few below.
Yeah.
And you'll have a go.
Yeah.
Or you'll get your sketchbook and you'll just draw without showing anybody, or you'll go out in a little group or something.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping that's come out of the takeaways here, that they're more yours than ours really.
Yeah, just make it enjoyable. I think the one thing that stood out to me, which I hadn't given much thought before, was around the stuff that you were saying with sensory drawing, Debs. I think that's something that I'll give a go, because it's not something that I've done in the past but not recently. So like drawing from just closing your eyes and touching an object, or drawing to music or sounds. I think that's something that I'd like to try, especially because we're in the summer months now as well, so it's nicer to be outside in Scotland. The sun is shining today, as you can see. Yeah, so that's something that I'd like to try. So
you'll have to let us know how it goes.
Yeah, I will do.
Right, okay. And I think that might be us for today.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we're always welcome to hear your comments, suggestions, feedback. So if you've got any thoughts on anything, just comment below. Debs did mention my mini course, which is available, which we'll link to, which is called I Can't Draw. It's got some video tutorials in there and some more tips as well. So if you're still feeling a little bit stuck, I'd encourage you to register for that course, which is completely free. It's a nice little mini course that you can do quite quickly, so you'll get a sense of achievement from it as well.
Yeah, so enjoy that course. You've got some quick drawing in there as well.
I have, yeah. I've got some quick drawing and some continuous line drawing as well. So
that's right, yeah.
Good exercises to get going with.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had to go at your course.
Yeah, good.
Right, and I think that's us for now. We'll go and enjoy some sunshine.
Yeah, thanks for listening. See you soon.
Bye for now. Bye.